Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into an unimaginable, apocalyptic event that completely flipped the script on Earth's history. We are going to look at a time when the world was pushed to its absolute atmospheric limits, an era that literally transformed the entire trajectory of life itself. If you've ever wondered how the ultimate underdogs took over the planet from giant armored beasts, well, buckle up, because this is the story of the storm that changed everything. 234 million. That is a massive number, right? Well, it takes us back exactly 234 million years ago to the brutal massive landmass known as the supercontinent Pangaea. Now, I need you to do me a favor and completely erase any picture of a lush, green, prehistoric Earth you might have in your head. The reality of this ancient era was entirely different and, frankly, a whole lot more terrifying. The world was locked into a state that is almost impossible for us to even comprehend today.
Let's start with Part 1, the Desert of Pangaea, a dead zone in the heart of a supercontinent.
Listen, we aren't talking about the normal dirt you'd find in a forest or your backyard. The ground back then was essentially a kiln-fired brick of redstone and salt, just constantly baking under a relentless sun. Nothing could grow here. It was this vast, unforgiving expanse where simply surviving meant enduring extreme, punishing desolation every single day. And you know why? The sheer size of Pangaea meant that ocean moisture simply couldn't reach the interior. Because of that extreme geographic isolation, the heart of the supercontinent was locked into a state of perpetual, lethal drought.
I absolutely love how historical sources describe this. They say the air was a wall of fire, and the sky was like a hot vault of brass. Just imagine standing outside and taking a breath literally feels like inhaling directly from a roaring oven. The sky wasn't a comforting blue either. It was this heavy, suffocating dome trapping all that heat below. That was the daily reality for anything trying to eke out a living in this wasteland. It was an environment that pushed biology to the absolute breaking point.
Moving right along to Part 2, the Age of Giants. Who ruled the desert? So picture this brutal hierarchy. At the top, you had the armored kings, these massive reptilian rulers who dominated the deserts for millions of years. They were built like actual tanks, heavy, slow, and perfectly adapted to conserve water and withstand that oppressive heat. Then, living out in the margins, you had the shadow dwellers. These were the small bipedal dinosaurs. Now, at this point in history, the dinosaur was a nobody. They were just desperate scavengers waiting in the wings for any crumbs left behind by the kings. They were fragile, they were insignificant, and they were completely outmatched.
So it begs the million-dollar question, right? How on earth did these tiny, underdog dinosaurs survive? How did these fragile shadow dwellers manage to hang on in a world of armored tanks and kiln-fired ground, only to eventually become the most famous and fearsome predators in Earth's history? Well, the answer lies in an event no one and nothing could have possibly seen coming. A catalyst so massive it rewrote the fundamental rules of survival.
Which brings us to Part 3. The Earth breaks open, a wound that would not heal.
Imagine what's happening deep beneath that rocky crust. The Earth suddenly began to shift. The immense pressure of the supercontinent was reaching a critical breaking point, setting off this massive chain reaction in the mantle that would ultimately alter the very atmosphere of the planet itself. The stability of that dead zone, which had lasted for millions of unimpeded years, was about to be violently and irreversibly interrupted from the inside out.
Literally, a massive geological wound tore wide open from within, and it was one that simply would not heal. Vast volcanic eruptions began spewing just unimaginable amounts of greenhouse gases into an already stifling sky. It was a rapid, violent change to the global climate, completely altering the global water cycle in the process. The atmosphere became supercharged, thickening with humidity and trapped heat until the pressure simply couldn't be contained anymore.
And then, against literally all physical odds in this absolute dead zone, the countdown started. The very first heavy, hot drop of water struck the ancient dust. That one single, seemingly impossible drop of moisture signaled the end of an era and the violent, watery birth of a brand new one. It was a moment of profound transformation, perfectly disguised as a simple change in the weather.
Now for Part 4, 2 million years of rain, the Great Deluge.
Okay, the scale of what happens next is it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. At year 0, Earth's crust tears open. By year 1, the first heavy drops fall. But then, it just didn't stop. A continuous, relentless storm pounded the Earth for 2 solid million years. 2 million years. The skies opened up and simply forgot how to close, turning this global desert into an endless, muddy, flooded world.
Rivers carved through canyons that had never seen a drop of water, and giant lakes swallowed up the endless dunes.
The impact of this massive storm was absolutely profound. I mean, it completely erased the dead zone, and it literally drowned those massive old gods of the desert. Think about it. Those armored kings were simply too big, too slow, and way too specialized for the dry heat to adapt to constant flooding and rapid shifts in vegetation. As they died out, the storm practically handed the keys of the kingdom directly to the quick, highly adaptable underdogs. The very things that made the early dinosaurs weak in the desert made them perfect survivors in the flood.
Part 5. Rise of the Dinosaurs. The New Order. So when the 2-million-year reign finally eventually stopped and the skies cleared, the playing field wasn't just leveled, it had been entirely replaced. Scientists actually refer to this exact era as the Carnian pluvial event. This extreme global rainfall caused a massive extinction of the giant reptiles, for sure, but it also served as the incredible catalyst that finally allowed those small, bipedal dinosaurs to step out of the shadows, multiply, and take the throne as the undisputed dominant species on Earth.
Seeing how drastically a single massive climate shift changed the entire trajectory of life on Earth leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about. What other shadow dwellers are waiting for their storm today? What seemingly insignificant creatures on our planet right now are just one major planetary shift away from inheriting the Earth? It really makes you look at the natural world and our place in it in a completely different light. Thank you so much for diving into this explainer with me today, and hey, never stop questioning the history beneath your feet.